I was recently joined by Carl Jones, founder and CEO of Konquest, and we discussed how within your recruitment business you can really ensure that your commission scheme is the performance driver that you need it to be, so you can get much more from your incentives.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Holly and Carl here on this lovely, hopefully sunny Monday morning. I'm not going to lie, I woke up this morning and I was feeling really autumnal. I got my woolly hat out, oh no, my brand new woolly hat out. I got my scarf and then let's check the weather and realised it's going to be 18 degrees. So safe to say, didn't need any of that. But it's a lovely sunny day here. Carl, how is it up with you?
Well, I was going to say that it's a pretty nice day here in North Yorkshire because as I looked out my window earlier on, it was a blue sky and I could see a bit of sun. And now I've looked out and it's a bit cloudy, so not as great as it was earlier.
That is not what we want on a day like today. But look, here we are. We won't talk too much more about the weather because we've got much more interesting things to talk about. So, for those of
Yeah.
you who don't know me, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Holly Langley. I'm the founder and CEO of Restack. I set up the business after having 6 years in recruitment technology and recruitment operations. I decided it was to set up my own business. It was time to do that and make sure we could help many recruitment agencies maximize their entire tech stack. I know. And mainly these days we work with Bullhorn customers. Carl was one of the very few people I knew in my time in my old job. And actually, I remember when I left and had my notice in, Carl was one of the guys that I spoke to and gave me some great advice. So, Carl, would you love to introduce yourself and what you and Conquest do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Carl. I'm the founder at Konquest. You might know us as the Red Gorilla guys, as that's how people tend to remember our brand, which you'll see in a second. And we're a software company, a rec tech company. We automate commission calculations and gamify them for the staff and recruiting industry only. We don't work with anybody else. So I'm the commission guy effectively.
And you do a very good job at it. And one of the things that I used to hate in my old job, and this might have been part of the reason why I left, is one, I absolutely hate spreadsheets because it's 2025. We don't need any spreadsheets anymore.
Yeah.
And the thing that I used to loathe was commission day. So we
Mhm.
had 40 people in 2 countries. And I'm not joking when I would say we had 80 spreadsheets because we had every individual had a spreadsheet. We then had one for the team. And then for like the team in Germany, we had both a UK version of that spreadsheet and then a German one. And it
Yeah.
took
Of
forever.
course.
And every single month there was an error, whether at the point of commission being created or at the point of it going through to payroll, there was an error. And I felt dreadful about that. And it always came back to me. And it was on the fact that it was on my head for not getting it right. But in hindsight, like it wasn't that. It was the fact that the spreadsheets were just so bad and it was never accurate. But you have kind of come in and you've created something that is like a bit of a one-stop shop for all of this. But what I also love and why we're speaking today is all about how to get the return on our incentives. There are so many incentives that you see across the board, whether that's commission, bonuses, lunch clubs, trips to Ibiza, or whatever we might be doing. And
Yeah.
you kind of really want to speak today about how people get more from their incentives, right?
Yeah, exactly that. I just think that for those that have heard me talk before, I've done a couple of these things over the years. Normally, it's about payout rates and thresholds and what's structure and all that type of thing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today because it fits in with that bigger picture. But what I'm seeing of late is, in the post-COVID downturn, margins are squeezed, things are tight. People are looking at how can we fix this. And of course, with incentives, commission, but incentives more broadly, it's one of those rare levers that can actually impact your bottom line and your top line if you get it right. And my feeling is that whilst folks are correct to focus on that bottom end, cost management, making sure you're not overpaying, etc., there's just not enough focus on the other end. And how can we actually get more from our existing incentives without it necessarily costing anything more? And I've got some ideas about that, and I wanted them to share with you and your audience, Holly.
Go ahead. So share away for us.
Yeah, lovely. Right. I've got my presentation.
Let's
Um,
go.
and
Is the technology going to be on our side? That's the question.
we're going to find out immediately. Can I share my screen? Let's try. All right, here we go. How does
Yes,
that
look at
look?
that. That was
Got it?
seamless, wasn't it? It's like
All
we've
right.
practiced this 100 times.
Beautiful. It's like I've done it before. So, all right, then we'll just dive straight in. I'm going to share a load of thoughts here, and then I'm more than happy, as always, to take any questions. And it doesn't have to be questions about what we're talking about today. It could be anything commission related. I probably wouldn't ask us anything outside of that because I'm not going to have a clue. But if it's commission related, hopefully I can help.
Yeah, shove
So,
your questions in the chat, and then if I see any through, I'll come through and ask you them.
and also, Holly, just interrupt us, mate. I'm happy to just answer questions as they come along. Like, let's
Okay.
keep it nice and informal. Speaking of informal, I have got some kind of agenda here as to what we'll talk about. So I'll quickly introduce myself and Konquest and the census, which is going to be important because that's where all of our data comes from. So when I'm talking about data, this is where you get it. And then we're going to talk about the two categories of return on incentive levers, which are managing the cost and increasing performance. So firstly, I've already mentioned Konquest software, automate your commission, gamify it, real-time visibility, all that type of stuff. But as part of our business, we do an exercise annually. It's the recruitment commission census. You can read that if you've got time. It's an online survey. It's the most in-depth data exercise on this subject, I think, anywhere in the world. And then we publish it in our report, which looks like this. And that report is available free. You can go to our website, konquest.io. You can download it. It's got loads of data in there. If you're looking to review, to make changes, whatever it may be, grab it. It's essential reading, really, and it's completely free. So, what we're talking about today is how do we increase return on incentive? And that's a little phrase I have to admit I did not invent it, but I like it. I stole it from somewhere else, and I'm going to be using it. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity for this. And the way that I'm kind of posing this is you've got two levers. You've got one lever, which will effectively help you manage the cost of your incentives. And that's one way that you can increase return. And then on the other side, how do you increase the performance? Now, ideally, you want to do both. That's how you're going to maximize that return in profitability. So first ones we're going to talk about are how do you manage the cost side of things. Some of these might be obvious, but this is where we need to start. So the biggest trend that we've seen in this year's census is the increase of thresholds. Now, some of you will already have a threshold. Some of you will not have one. In the latter camp, where you don't have one, this is likely to be something you've discussed, you considered, you might be scared, you might feel like introducing this, it's going to demotivate your people. Completely get it. Want to share a little bit of context from the wider market that gives you at least some confidence you know what's going on. So the first thing is that for the first time that I've seen over the last 5-6 years, thresholds are now a majority tool. So it's bumped its head on 50% a couple of times over the years when we've been collecting this data. This year's data for the first time went over that 50%. 56% have a threshold in place. So if you're considering it, you are not alone. You're not even going to be in the minority. You're actually going to be in that majority. And what we also track in the census is what the fastest growing and most profitable recruiters are doing. And in terms of thresholds, 63% of the fastest growing recruiters have thresholds, and they've increased 14% year on year. So there's been a big leap there. Went the wrong way. Now, the type of threshold, most commonly is an exclusive threshold. That just means that if you've got a 5K threshold, that you only get paid from 5K onwards. So if you did a $6,000 deal, you'd only get paid on the 1,000 that exceeds your threshold, not from zero. That would be an inclusive threshold. So there's different types. This is the most common and most popular. And this is what we're expecting to happen in the future. So as part of our census, we ask people, are you planning any changes? What are they? And 25% of the most profitable, 33% of the fastest growing plan to introduce or increase their threshold. So I'm just sharing this to say that if you're tight on margin, which I know you all are, and you're looking at your commission and you're saying, well, we need to protect ourselves, particularly at the bottom end here. What can we do? Threshold's going to be thrown around. It's the most obvious tool. And if you're a bit uncomfortable with that, perhaps don't be. It is the majority of recruiters that are using this now, and I expect that trend to continue. So that's the first thing. Now, that's consultants. We also need to talk about managers because that's the other thing as well. And quite often, this is where people will come a cropper, particularly when you're in a scale phase. You introduce your first layer of managers, you don't make any changes to your consultant commission, and then you have to reward those managers with some kind of override. You can get yourself into trouble here. So the first thing to note is that thresholds are much more common for managers, over 70% in the overall industry, and 100% of the most profitable recruiters that went through our census, about 260 brands, have a threshold in place. My personal opinion, based on all of that data and all the advisory and everything that I've done over the years, is a threshold for managers absolutely non-negotiable. You have to have it in there. What that will look like is some kind of relationship to your overall team targets. So it starts at 80%. You need to achieve 80% of team target before you start earning an override. That's just one example. And I should also say, anybody that's on here, if you have any questions that don't get answered today, just link in with me, send me some message. I'm happy to help everyone. So thresholds is one thing. Now, the problem with a threshold, when you don't have one, is it can seem scary. All of your people are used to not having a threshold. That's seen as a benefit. No salesperson, no recruitment person wants to have a threshold by choice. If you introduce one, what's the impact going to be? This is really common. People come to me all the time about this and just say, look, we've never had a threshold. We think we have to implement one now. We're really worried that we're going to lose our top people or whatever it may be. And my retort to that is, okay, it's a spectrum. That's what your choice is, a spectrum. It's not binary. You don't have to go from having no threshold to having a, really high rolling threshold, which would be the worst case. There's all these options in between. And one of those options is an emergent trend. And this is the trend of layered commission plans or layered schemes. A 48% increase in this approach from last year to this year. There's a lot of good reasons, but first, what is a layered scheme? It's really simple. This is just an example from the Konquest platform because it's easy to make it visual. Effectively, what you have is many of you will just have a commission plan, and it might be monthly, it might be quarterly, whatever it is. With a layered approach, you would have two cadences, two layers. So this example that we have on the screen here, I've got a monthly commission scheme that runs every month. It's banded, this tiered approach, which most of you probably have. But in addition to that, I then have this quarterly kicker. Now, the reason why I'm layering this in now is this is a way for you to have a threshold without having a threshold. I'll say that again. This is a way for you to have a threshold. If you haven't got one now and you're worried and you're exploring options, it's a way for you to have one without having one. And what I mean by that is you can pay from zero, which means you can say we don't have a threshold, we pay from zero, but you build that threshold into the longer cadence. So in this example, that would be the quarterly component. So in this is just here for illustration. But in here, what we effectively have, you might not be able to see, but in order to qualify to be paid at all, you have to build 38k in that quarter. If you don't get there, you don't get paid anything in this quarterly accelerator. If you do, then you start to get paid more. So this introduces a couple of concepts. One is the protective element, meaning that you only really pay out the level that you're comfortable when people are on target or hit that minimum performance over a quarter. It also introduces basic premises of gamification in that there's more goals now to aim for, not just the tiers on a monthly basis, but you've also got that quarterly component to think of as well. And it skews your payout rate in favor of your higher performers. And when we're talking about squeezed margins and protecting ourselves, really that's what we want to do. We don't want to lower the amount of commission we're paying altogether for everyone. We just want to skew it to where we're much more comfortable to those higher performers. So that's a really good trick. Anyone wants to talk about that, just drop me a line. I'll talk about it all day long.
What I quickly like about that one, Carl, is that it's that consistency piece. So a lot of the agency owners who we've been speaking to recently have been saying, look, our teams are doing really well 1 month, then they go off the boil for the next 2 months, then it's fine again. And actually having that commissions over a longer period, such as a quarter or what have you, I think is really going to drive that consistency in billings from across the team, because it will give them that visualization that they can't just make a couple of deals and sit back and go on all the holidays. They need to make sure that they are continually billing throughout the quarter, and I think that is a fantastic way to show that through kind of a slightly different scheme. I like that very much. Maybe I will have to implement that with our sales team.
I'd recommend it, and you're absolutely bang on, mate. That when we talk about the biggest issues with commission, you have one for perm and a totally different problem for contract. For perm, in one word, it is consistency. That's what people tell us all the time. Lumpy performances, getting overpaid for a great month but a really poor quarter. This is a way that you can protect yourself from that. For contract, just so everyone knows, in case you're wondering what the biggest problem is, we're not incentivizing runnable growth. No one's doing that. Don't know why. People are being rewarded in their top tier for just sitting still, stagnating, or even going backwards a little bit. But for perm, it's consistency. But that's on the bottom end. So how do we make sure that we're paying out an appropriate amount? How do we protect ourselves from not overpaying for underperformance, not exacerbating the compound effect on our margins, all that type of thing. But what about the other end? And this is the part that I really want to talk about because I've not talked about this a great deal in the past. So how can we take our existing incentives and how do we ensure that we're squeezing them for every ounce of performance we can? Well, it's about engagement, it's about embedding it in your process, and it's about ultimately visibility with the incentives that you have. Not just commission, I should say. This is for any incentive. So the first thing is do ensure that you have the right structure in place. Make sure you're incentivizing overperformance with a tiered sort of structure. It is common. 77% of the industry has it already. 79% of the fastest growing, 90% of the most profitable. This is the first thing to look at. If you don't already have this in place, this will help you drive performance. It's just completely proven. But once you have the structures in place and your lunch clubs and everything else, what can we do? Well, the first thing is please ensure that all of your incentives are visible. Now, this isn't a sales pitch for Konquest, of course. If you want it all singing, all dancing, real time and everything, you've got to have software. But you don't have to go to those lengths just to make it a little bit more visible. I've quoted our good friend, rest in peace, Charlie Munger. Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome with the show part highlighted. This is a faux pas that we just see too often. You bring people into the business, you show them your commission scheme, and then it's pretty much forgotten about until the end of the month, and then you tell them how much they've made. That's not good enough today. You need to have this more visible. They need to understand where they are at all times, particularly if you implement a layered approach at the beginning of the quarter. You want them to know where they are for the end of quarter accelerator, not when they get to the end of that period when it's too late to influence anything. So visibility is really important. At the most basic level, just have a shared spreadsheet, just have some kind of workbook that's available to your people so that they can quickly engage with that and make it really easy and really quick for them to understand the impact of their actions on their wallet, ultimately on their earnings. And you want to
And I
also
think,
extrapolate
oh,
this.
sorry, Carl. I think what's really important with that is, especially if you're doing temps, like it's not everyone always has the visibility about how much your temps have actually billed that month or that quarter, because with a perm, you know if the deal's gone in, you know the fee, but we don't always have visibility if that temp has done 1 day or 20 days that month. So making sure that your team have got that visibility within some sort of system, spreadsheet, whatever, is brilliant. Even if they have access and they can view that themselves from the timesheet system, fantastic. But yeah, I'm 100% with you. When we in my old job, we used to do loads of holiday incentives and lunch club incentives, and we literally had ginormous posters printed all around the office for everybody to see. And we had this amazing ski holiday planned, and I literally did this whole mass ski fair, I felt like a primary school teacher, and every couple of weeks we'd update it. But having that visibility, I think, is so valuable, no matter where it is. Consultants are here and they want to have that. So yeah, I'm fully invested in this. Let's see
essential.
what the
It's
outcomes
essential.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely essential. If they can't see it, they're not going to engage with it. It's not going to be front of mind. So I think this is absolutely essential. But I think you also need to extrapolate this as well. It's not just on the individuals. You need to, as I mentioned as we headed up there, it needs to be interwoven into your performance management processes overall. This is just an illustration. This isn't actually a screenshot of our platform, but probably should be. But this is just to illustrate that your managers need visibility of where each of their team members are in all of your incentives. So lunch club, that's a good idea. But where are they against their progress towards this lunch club? When they pull a job, is that job, if they fill it, is that enough for them to make lunch club? We should be mentioning that. The same is true for commission, having visibility so that managers can see where each of their people are. Again, this is particularly true if you use best practice. If you have layered components, if you have a quarterly accelerator or longer term, then you need visibility so that your managers can leverage that tool, leverage the motivation, and get more out of it. If your managers don't have visibility, they're not going to be leveraging that. So you leave an effort on the table there. I think that's a really important point to capitalize on. And my next point is the real motivation. Anyone that's connected with me on LinkedIn, I've mentioned this on a couple of posts over the last couple of months. That is a feature in Konquest, I should say, and it's one of my favorite ones, personal goals. But the point is, it's not the money that we're paying these people. It's what they choose to do with that money that's going to be the real motivator. And everyone's going to be completely different. This is an individual thing. You know, you might be getting married. That's your goal. You've got to save up for that dream wedding next year. Perhaps you're looking to get the first step on the property ladder. So that's your goal. Maybe it's a watch or a car or a handbag. It doesn't matter what it is. What is that individual driver for each member in your team? And make sure that you are leveraging that. Make sure that your managers are aware of what that driver is and that they can relate it in context. This action that you can take today will have this impact on your personal goal. And that's the way that you're going to get people bought in all the time. And the last point that I'm making here is just make sure that it's embedded. So I mentioned this before, but what do I mean? It means that ahead of a new year, ahead of a new quarter, when you're setting targets, of course, talk about the business metrics that are associated here. Billings, ultimately, this is what you need to build, but also make sure that you're including that personal goal, that personal motivation, the impact on their commission, the impact on their career ladder, on their lunch club attendance. Make sure that's in there. Interweave it throughout the whole performance management process, your one-to-ones, your appraisals, quarterly business reviews, whatever it would be. And in an absolutely ideal world, and this is hard, I will grant it, make it even quicker. So that when anything happens, I've just pulled 2 jobs, make it so that your people and your managers instantly know, boom, that this is going to have an impact on. I'm going to attend the company trip at the end of the year. I'm going to qualify. I'll also qualify for my lunch club. I'm going to be 50% of the way there for my new handbag goal, and I'm going to make a few grand in commission, whatever it may be. The closer you can get there, the quicker you get there, you close the immediacy of reward feedback loop, which is really powerful motivational psychology. Like, how do we increase discretionary effort? And discretionary effort is quite often the difference between good and great. And I think that if you leverage all of these things that we've talked about here today, particularly that last one, that personal motivator, that really intrinsic driver that each of us have when we come to work, then you will see greater motivation and therefore greater performance out of your incentives. And that's the infinite end. The bottom end, saving costs, it's finite. There's only so much that you can do there. And once you've milked out a couple of percent, it's going to be really hard for you to get any more without becoming uncompetitive or losing people or whatever it may be. The top end is infinite. I think you should be focusing your efforts there. Hopefully some of these have been good examples as to how you can achieve that. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts. The last thing I'm going to say though, dissatisfaction with commission is so high. So this is another part of the census that we ask everyone. This actual chart, I don't think is in the report. This is more like our raw data. But we always ask people like, how happy are you? And then we try and help by publishing the census or other stuff. If you're sat there now and you've listened to everything and you've said, Carl, that all sounds amazing, but our commission's absolutely crap and I need to change it, you're not alone. The majority of people, and actually the bigger the organization, the more likely are that they have greater issues. So you're really not alone. Download the census report from us. It's free. Guys, you're going to get an email or something from us after. I'm sorry about that. This is business, but it is free. There's a lot of information in there. You can link in with me and ask me any questions. I always give people time. If I can help you, I will. But I would urge you to really take this stuff seriously. There's a real opportunity for you to drive more performance, to keep people happier, and to just have a healthier business. And if we can play a small part in helping you achieve that, then that would be absolutely fantastic. So I've talked really quickly and I've went through a lot there, haven't I, Holly? I hope everyone understood what I had to say, mate. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, no, that was fabulous. Like for me, so this time last year in the business, it was just me. We've now got a team of like 5 of us. And I'm sitting here now thinking, I know what my goals are. I know what I want. I want to go and buy a 1919 Porsche 911 in black.
Very
I'll let you know when that happens, guys. One day it will happen. But I've got no idea what motivates my team. And I know some of them are on the call now thinking, oh, Holly, come on, I just want my money, or I'm going to do this. But actually, I don't as a manager and I don't as a leader. And you know what? I'm not okay with that, because I can't show up for them and I can't support them in what they want to achieve in their lives, in their work, or in their earnings if I don't know that. And I think that is going to be a massive takeaway that I'm going to have and what I'm going to be implementing over the course of the next quarter with my team, to make sure we all have set goals, whether that's big or small, to make sure that we can all work towards those, because we're not all here just to come to work every day. We surely we're at work to help support the great lives that we want to lead. Yeah. And this is all really, really part of that, especially like we've got, as I mentioned, we've got Chris in our sales team now, who I'll be open is obviously on a commission structure and like he's heavily targeted for this year. And we've set something out, but equally going through that journey as a business leader, I had no idea what to do. I had no idea what commissions to set, and I had to take quite a lot of external advice. And I've genuinely got no idea if he's happy with that or not. I'm assuming he is, because he accepted the job and he seems happy with it. Chris, if you're not, feel free to let me know. And but again, we're going to have to review that. And actually, like, it wouldn't surprise me if in 2 years, 3 years, that the what we have put in now isn't going to work for him. We're going to have to keep moving that along. If as and when our team grows, we need to adapt that further. So it's one of those things that I think there's so much to this conversation about how we review, measure, support our teams going forward. It's way more than just calculating the commissions. It's the like the holistic piece that comes with it about the culture in the business and respecting those who work there and helping us all create a life that we want to live, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And and it's not just about money. It's not just about commission.
Yeah.
Particularly with the new generation, like there are different things that people are interested in, flexible time, autonomy, all of these other drivers. But a cohesive, well-rounded rewards program will take into account the culture, the demographic
Yeah.
of your team, and make sure that you're driving people on what actually makes the difference for
Yeah.
them.
So I've got a question has come through, and if this isn't you, then feel free to say how, if a lot of people have just kind of said in that survey, dissatisfaction with comms is quite high.
Yeah.
How would you recommend that we manage that within a team? Because I'm fairly certain if you said to salespeople, give us some feedback on the commission scheme, they're going to go, I want 100% commission on everything that I make.
Yeah.
How do you advise leaders to have those important conversations and go about it in the right way?
Yeah, it's a balance thing. We actually have a commission health check tool. It's a free tool. You don't have to put your email in or anything. On the website, it's 10 questions there, which will probably help you to like understand the way to approach it. I don't think that you want to go to your commission earners and ask them like questions like that. I think what you probably want to do is to start by taking a look at the business goals. That's the first place to start. Then comes the strategy, then comes the roles and responsibilities to deliver against that strategy, and just ask yourself, like, do you feel like the behaviors required here are being driven appropriately? Start at that sort of level. You then want to take a view, objective view. So what are your payout rates? That's the next thing. Understand what that means for you and your business, and if that fits within your strategy and your goal. And if it doesn't, you probably want to make changes. And then if you are going to include other people, you don't want to ask them explicit questions like that, but rather just have a gauge of sentiment. And that would be to pose questions along the lines of, strongly agree to strongly disagree. My threshold is fair, or whatever it be, or I'm appropriately remunerated when I perform. Those are the type of questions. You're not going to get a 10 out of 10. Everyone's absolutely over the moon. It just doesn't exist. But it's much more about the business goals and the strategy to deliver against that, and then where your incentives help to drive that, than it is the feedback from your people on the ground. So that would be how I'd approach that personally.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I like what you said there about like, do you say the payout rates and like kind of seeing the success of everything, I think is a fantastic idea to make sure that it is moving in the right direction. Okay, another quick question. And again, this is going to be this probably opened a whole can of worms here. How often should people be reviewing the commission structure that they have in place? And how do you kind of review apart of obviously I know going through your surveys and stuff, but like what really should they be looking at?
Well, once a year at least. That's the absolute minimum. And or anytime something material changes in your business, be that the market, your geographies, the business model, your revenue dynamics, anything that materially changes, you should have an impact there. But annually, for most people, unless things are going really wrong, and then you have to, as with any other business decision, you have to be quite objective, take the emotion out. If you find yourself, like many have over the last couple of years, where you're just simply paying out too much commission. It's unavoidable. You're paying out too much. If you wait until the end of the year, you might not make it to the end of the year. So in those circumstances, you've got to be a little bit more savage. For most people, though, once a year.
Yeah, I think that's about right because it's quite a mammoth task. I can imagine to review everything and make sure that you map it out. And I suppose if you are working on a financial year, or like calendar year, definitely coming into Q4, probably work that out. So if you're starting off January in a new commission structure, have those conversations, sort that out now, not on the 1st of January when it's a bit too late to then roll that out.
Yeah, exactly that. You want to get ahead of it. People may well be working on
Yeah,
placements that are going to start in the new year now,
yeah.
depending on the business, and you want to get ahead of that as best you can for sure.
Okay. Final question. Do you ever see commission structures based upon the type of work that has been like agreed? Like, do you ever see a different regime or a different structure for temp in comparison to perm, in comparison to something like is exclusive retained? Or is it all very much similar for every sort of employment type?
Oh, it has to be different. You have to segment those. That's a common mistake, actually, where you have like a dual desk approach and you have one commission plan that covers contract and perm. And normally it's where you're more interested in contract, but they might do the occasional perm. You definitely don't want that. As soon as your runner book gets up to any sort of size, you're in the top tier, you do a perm deal, it's just automatically getting paid out at the top tier. You want that as a separate concern, for sure.
Yeah, that's good to know. And one of the things that we've spoken about a few times is some of our clients have been kind of saying that they want stuff that's like paid when paid, because they need to make sure that obviously we are making sure that invoices get paid before we pay out on that commissions. And what I will say is like that is it's well worth doing. It can be all put back into zero, what have you, from zero into your CRM. Just make sure you're tracking all of that to make sure it works. Interesting. Well, you've given me a lot to think about, and I hope that my team are ready, because come 9 o'clock tomorrow morning on our next team meeting, they're all going to get hounded about what's motivating them. But maybe I'll let them know about that. I'll give them a few weeks to decide, because it took me a long time to work out I wanted a Porsche 911. So there we go. But I feel like when that day comes, Carl, and I get my Porsche, we'll have to go and drive around Yorkshire together and re-listen to this webinar.
Let's do it. That'll be great. My Porsche is just, where is it? Just there.
There it is.
There it is.
There we go. I don't know if we'll both fit in that, though. That's the only problem, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Carl, if anybody has any questions for you, how is the best place for them to contact you?
Well, LinkedIn, we're all on there, so you can find me there, no problems. Otherwise, it's carl@konquest.io. Any questions, anything that I can help with, I'm always very keen to do so.
Fabulous. I actually met 2 people today who weren't on LinkedIn. In recruitment, there were 2 recruitment CEOs. I was frantically trying to find them to make sure I hadn't been like catfished. They were like, no, we're just not on LinkedIn. Blew my mind. There we go. So I will make sure they email you. But look, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for sharing so much. You've definitely given me a lot to think about. And I hope everybody who's watching has had some great things to talk about as well. If you have any questions for Carl or I, you absolutely know where we are. And make sure you go through and complete the commission survey. And the commission says when you see anything like that comes through, because it doesn't just help you guys, it helps the entire industry. So thank you, Carl, for leading commissions. And we are very, very grateful for everything you do to educate a lot of us about commissions in our industry, and me as a business leader to get more from my team. So have a fantastic Monday, everybody. Have a fantastic week. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we hope you found this valuable. And I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Cheers. Bye-bye.
And if you're interested in speaking to Carl or I about this in any further details, you know where we are. The details are in the description below.